We will start with a huge game. Speaking of making it to the playoffs, in the NFC West, it's the rematch from a couple of weeks ago. The Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals, 2.5-point favorites. We saw the Seahawks play poorly early, Greg, and then come back and win. Just the only errors the Seahawks seemed to make were catastrophic errors against the Jets. They managed to win because they played the Jets. The Arizona Cardinals played a much better team, wilted late against the Vikings. How do you see this one going?
I lean towards the Cardinals because when you play 2 games in 3 weeks, again, and they're both good teams, it's really hard to sweep a team. If Jonathan Gannon loses this matchup to the Mike McDonald, like, that to me is almost like an early show of dominance. Like, this is a guy I'm going to be playing twice a year, in theory, for a while. To come out swinging and you take out the other defensive-minded head coach twice in 3 weeks, it's the biggest game of the week in terms of the playoffs. If the Seahawks win, and this is according to FTN and Aaron Schatz, if the Seahawks win, they have a 62% chance to make the playoffs. If they lose the game, they have an 11% chance.
Ooh.
And the spread is similar for the Cardinals. If you win, they're 71%, 17% if they lose. And what the math is saying there is, obviously, if the Seahawks sweep the Cardinals, that's a huge advantage.
Right.
And probably there's only one team getting out of this division, more likely than not. But if the Cardinals win, they have an easier schedule a little bit down the stretch. And I think the numbers underline kind of show maybe they're a slightly better team than the Seahawks. We'll have to see who's playing their best at the end of the season because both their defenses are playing well right now.
Yeah, I mean, and you brought this up yesterday on the show, Greg. Seattle's playing well at the end of ball games. And, and Arizona's been a little touch and go when it comes to that. We saw that last week against the Vikings. So the 2.5 number seems about right. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. We'll see if your guy Gino, Ripcord Gino, balls out a little bit, But
what happens on Quarterback Island stays on Quarterback Island.
We're good. That's
it's a lot of pressure for Gino right now. Kyler got booted off.
Kyler got booted, so he might be a little angry. But I like the Arizona Cardinals this one. I'm with you, and as far as the narrow margin of when you play these games and sweeping it, that is a difficult thing.
I said it a couple of weeks ago when I initially picked the Seahawks to win at home that we would come to this game at this point and I would take the home team Arizona Cardinals to win the next one. I think these two teams are very, very similar in terms of their overall potential to make a push here late. And a lot of it is based on the defensive improvement we've seen from Seattle.
Yep.
And over on the other side, Greg inspired me to delve more in and to share my knowledge of the search of the Arizona Cardinals. It's my affectionate nickname for guys that make plays. I'm like, who is that? So today we meet Garrett Alexander Williams, a defensive back, his second season out of Syracuse.
He was pretty good as a rookie.
Yeah,
he currently leads the team in interceptions. If teams are in 3 wide receiver sets, he's more than likely on the field. He is Garrett is my name 3 on Twitter.com. The 3 replaces the E in name. And I watched a lot of his snaps. He's a really good football player. I'm glad I know his name now. I hope more people appreciate him.
Yeah, and he could be matching up at some point against JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's
balling,
getting up there in terms. When you look just like total yards over the last half season, he's moving up. You hope DK Metcalf is healthy. It's a tough matchup. Since week 9, the Seahawks are 3rd in the league in EPA per play in terms of their defense, 7th in success rate. So they have really turned things around, and what they did in that first matchup against Arizona was find a way to really slow down that Cardinals running game, force them into long yardage situations, and blitz Kyler Murray. And the Vikings, I don't know if it was from them watching that tape last week or not, or you don't have to ask them to blitz, but the offensive line and Kyler combined to struggle to identify where the free rushers were coming from. So even though they moved the ball quite well in that game, when the Vikings blitzed, it was a big problem. That's actually been a problem for Kyler all season long. His numbers against the blitz have not been great, so that's something to watch for.
And you saw the Vikings very lane disciplined blitzing. They weren't necessarily trying to get upfield to protect him. Let's get in his eye. Let's get in his passing lanes. Let's get in his eyesight. Let's be creative. That's something that we could see. Real quick, kudos to you for saying that McDonald could go Kyle Shanahan over Sean McVay if he goes and he sweeps John Gannon right here.
Yeah.
Getting a little bit of that, hey, I got your number.
Well, they brought McDonald here to be kind of the Shanahan tree killer, and I know he lost that game to the Rams, but I thought they played well defensively in that game, and then they finally got a win over the 49ers. There is something to that with guys that are going to be around and playing each other for a while. I think so.
Yeah, it's harder to sell because there's the friends, on the same coaching staff. Of course, the picture of the 2006 Washington football franchise. I almost had to put one in the slur jar there, where everybody's on the same coaching staff. But yeah, despite that, they could still have this rivalry in the division where both teams 5-3 in their last. 3-2 in their last 5 games.
And it's such a big game for the Cardinals because they suddenly what would have been such a promising season at 6-7, and you're looking up at the Seahawks at 8-5. Suddenly they are just not feeling great about themselves. And one big advantage I do give the Seahawks, if it is close, and I was talking about the end of game sequences, I think Mike McDonald's really been excellent in those situations. If you watch the end of the halves, it helps to have a veteran quarterback like Geno Smith, certainly. If you watch the end of the halves and the end of the games, clock management, when to use challenges, when to use timeouts, the numbers show that they're one of the best teams in the league, and just watching it, they're very on it. And we tend to only notice the coaches that are bad at it.
Right.
But they are very good at it, and he's a rookie head coach. So I give him some credit. Where on the flip side, Greg Olsen was killing Jonathan Gannon last week for kicking that field goal to go up 6 with about 3 minutes to go. Instead of going for it on 4th and 3, they end up losing by 1. So maybe if it is close at the end, you trust the Seahawks a little more.
Great point.
Yeah, still looking forward to a great matchup. It's going to be huge in terms of playoff implications.
And it's 4:05, by the way. That's the best game in the afternoon. It's the 4:05. Sorry for interrupting.
No,
it
you're
annoys
good.
Me.
It's worth noting. Time is important.